الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده ما يضل إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا سبحان الله إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. بعد today inshallah we're going to see the chapter 37 ما جاء في لو, what it is said about a person saying if, in other words, if I did this that would have happened. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم يقولون لو كان لنا من الأمر شيء ما قتلنا هنا وقوله الذين قالوا لإخوانهم وقعدوا لو أطاعونا ما قتلوا. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, describing the hypocrites at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, who did not want to go to jihad for the sake of Allah, they say, if we had anything to do with this matter, if we had any decision to make in this matter, then we wouldn't have even been fighting here. In other words, they were with the Prophet ﷺ, they were fighting, but they disliked the fact that they were fighting. Okay? And they said, if it were up to us, we wouldn't fight. If it were up to us, we'd just make truce with the disbelievers, let them occupy the land, plunder the resources, because all we want to do is live. Okay? So this is how the hypocrites acted at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, and this is how they are acting today. It's a sunnah, nothing changes, right? Because they say if we fight against the enemies of Allah, they're going to kill us, they're going to destroy us. So it's better to just make a truce, give them whatever they want, as long as we get to live. They also said, these hypocrites, those who stayed behind. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaking about the hypocrites that stayed behind. So the first type, they fought with the Prophet ﷺ, but they still did not like the fact that they were fighting for the sake of Allah. Another section actually stayed behind, did not fight with the Prophet ﷺ, and spoke about those that went to fight with the Prophet ﷺ. So Allah speaking about these, الَّذِينَ قَعَدُوا, those that stayed behind, they said about their brothers, if they had listened to us and not go out to fight jihad with the Prophet ﷺ, they wouldn't have been killed. If they only listened to us and not have gone out to fight with the Prophet ﷺ, they would not have been killed. لَوْ أَطَاعُونَ مَا قُتِلُوا. لَوْ أَطَاعُونَ مَا قُتِلُوا. If they listened to us, we gave them an advice. Okay? So these are two types. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is calling these type of people kuffar. Allah says, يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا لَا تَكُونُوا كَالَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا وَقَالُوا. So by their mere statement of saying this, they have disbelieved in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because as we said before, one of the shurut, one of the conditions of Islam is al-yaqeen, al-munafi al-shak. In other words, you have to believe in this religion without having any doubt. Those that actually are afraid to fight for the sake of Allah, afraid to die, these people experience doubt in the religion. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that they are disbelievers because they disbelieve in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His promise, and in the fact that the qadr is not going to be changed, whether you stay behind or whether you go to fight. And what's the best example? The companion, Sahabi Jalil, Khalid bin Walid, radiallahu anhu. You know Khalid bin Walid, right? وَمَا أَدْرَاكَ بِخَالِد bin Walid, right? He was the leader of the Muslim armies that defeated the Persian and Roman Empire. Two empires. And then, how did he die? He died on his bed. And he, radiallahu anhu, said a very famous statement. He says, there's not a hand span in my body except there is a scar from a spear or a sword. And here I am, dying on my bed, like old women. فَلَا نَامَتْ أَعْيُنُ الْجُبَنَاءِ. لا نامت عين الجبلاء. Let the cowards never be able to sleep. In other words, here he is. He's the leader of the Muslim armies, and usually the leaders are targeted for killing. He fights against two empires, and he still dies on his bed. So, waging jihad is not the one that kills you. The time and day you're going to die is prescribed before you are born. Now, this doesn't mean that I'm going to go to a building and say, I'm going to jump. And if Allah decreed that I'm going to die, I'm going to die. Guess what? Allah decreed you're going to die. Maybe. Although I did see a very amazing video of some guy who tried to commit suicide. He jumped from, I don't know how many, 20 plus levels building, he didn't die, subhanAllah. Like his hands and legs were broken. It was like an awful scene. And he was actually dragging it on the street. He tried to commit suicide and he didn't die. SubhanAllah. So, therefore, here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us that you should not be like disbelievers and say that death is an effect of a certain cause. Because you fought for the sake of Allah, that's why you died. No. Death is going to come to you at the time that you are decreed. My son, can you please close the door? Jazakallah khair. So that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that these people don't believe in qadar. So they're telling you that if they had listened to us, they wouldn't have died. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, قُلْ لَوْ كُنْتُمْ في بُيُوتِكُمْ لَبَرَزَ الَّذِينَ كُتِبَ عَلَيْهِمُ الْقَتْلُ إِلَى مَضَاجِعِهِمْ. Say, if you are safely in your house, then those on whom death has been decreed would get up from their houses and leave and go to the place where death is decreed upon them so that they can die. They're going to get up and go with their own feet to where Allah decreed for them to die. That's why Idris alayhi salam, in the explanation of Ibn Kathir, قال Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when he says, وَرَفَعْنَاهُ مَكَانًا عَلِيًّا, Idris alayhi salam was one of the prophets, and he had friends among the angels that would come to them and speak to him. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had decreed that his time was up. So usually prophets, they are given the choice. When death comes, prophets are given the choice. Are they to die or they want to live longer? That's why Musa alayhi salam, in the famous story, the angel of death came to him and he says, I am angel of death, I want to take your soul away. Musa alayhi salam punched him in the eye. So the angel of death went back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and says, you have sent me to a slave that does not want to die. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends back the angel of death. He tells Musa alayhi salam, a message from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He says, put your hand on a cow or a bull. And then we're going to extend your life by the number of hairs that your hand is covering. Then Musa alayhi salam asked him, then after that, then what's going to happen? He said, you're going to die anyway. He says, well, if we're going to die anyway, might as well die now. So angels are given the choice. That's why the Prophet ﷺ was given the choice. Either he lives in this world as a king forever, or he joins Ar-Rafiq al-A'la. That's why he ﷺ said, بَلِ الرَّفِيقُ الْأَعْلَى. I prefer to be close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So he ﷺ was given the choice. Okay. So Idris alayhi salam, when he was given the news that he was going to die, he said, let me go up to the heavens and try to speak to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala there. So as he went with the angel, when he reached the fourth level sky, he found the angel of death there. So angel of death said, Subhanallah, Allah ordered me to take your soul in the fourth heaven. And I was wondering, Idris alayhi salam is on earth. How am I going to take his soul in the fourth heaven? So when Idris alayhi salam saw that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had decreed that, then he said, okay. Then the angel of death took his life. Okay? So Idris alayhi salam came from earth all the way to the fourth heaven because that's what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decreed for his life to be taken. Similarly, as you know, we hear many things happen. Sometimes a person never goes to a country. And then the first time he goes to that country, he dies there. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decreed that he's going to die in that country even before he was born. Maybe he never visited that country. He just went there once, right? So death, where you're going to die and when you're going to die, this is decreed. Therefore, do not let the fear of death stop you from doing what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has ordered you. Do not let the fear of death stop you from what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has ordered you to do. Okay? وفي صحيح عن أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قال احرص على ما ينفعك واستعن بالله ولا تعجزن وإن أصابك شيء فلا تقل لو أني فعلت كذا لكان كذا وكذا ولكن قل قدر الله وما شاء فعل فإن لو تفتح عمل الشيطان. On the authority of Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu, he said that the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم said, persist in what benefits you. Otherwise, do the good deeds so that you can get ajr, reward with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Persist in what benefits you. In other hadith, stay away from qeel and qal. He said, she said, just talking about people and talking about nonsense. Just waste of time, right? So, persist in what benefits you. Seek Allah's help and do not behave helplessly. Don't behave as if there is no hope in doing anything. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, at the tongue of Ibrahim alayhi salam, وَمَنْ يَقْنَطُ مِنْ رَحْمَةِ اللَّهِ إِلَّا الْقَوْمُ الضَّالُّونَ. Who despairs from the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala except those who are astray. So do not despair from Allah's mercy. And if something happens to you, do not say, if I had done this, then that would have happened. Okay, so for example, you're driving in a car, just small example. Then you get into an accident, la qaddar Allah. So you say, see, I should have left earlier. Because if I didn't leave early, if I left earlier, this lady wouldn't be here. I wouldn't have had an accident with her. I always say ladies because I don't know how to drive. I mean, this is my impression about them. I know people are gonna say that I'm a male chauvinist, but look, I say the truth. I tell it as it is. You know, one of the funniest thing, you know, sometimes I try to break the ice by saying funny things that, you know, at stop signs, you know, in Morocco, when I'm driving at stop signs, I'm always aware. If there is a woman, I have to make sure I'm ready to stop. Why? Because as soon as the car in front of her leaves, she follows. She never sees that there's actually a stop sign. Right? So, of course, there are some women that drive trucks. Actually, I saw here a woman driving a truck and I was amazed. But in general, Allah did not create them for this maneuvering, driving fast, having reflexes in highway, I mean, on a normal day, going from point A to B, yeah, and even my 7-year-old son can do that. But when it comes to maneuvers and getting away from danger, it's difficult for them. In any event, so if I had done this, that wouldn't have happened. So basically, don't say that, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has decreed that you're going to get into that accident. If you had left your house earlier, even that woman would have left her house earlier. Okay, she's with you. Okay, she's your qada. You're going to get into an accident with her. Okay, so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, also the Prophet rather says that don't say if I had done this, then that would have happened. But say instead, Allah has decreed, and He has done subhanahu wa ta'ala as He will. So Allah made a decree, and His decree came to pass. Okay, because if opens the way from the work of shaitan. Okay, what does it mean that it opens the work of shaitan? Shaykh Sa'di rahimahullah says, know that the worshipper's usage of the statement if fills into two categories. Okay, so sometimes we can say if, and it's allowed, as there are some hadith and ayat that talk about that, and other times if is forbidden to be said. Okay, so we're gonna see the two categories. Okay, as for the usage which has been censored, that means forbidden, it is when the person experiences a matter or does something that he does not like for that to happen. So he says, if I did this, then such and such would never have happened. So like we give the example of the hypocrites. They said, if these our brothers did not go out to fight jihad, they would not have died. This is a forbidden way of using the if statement. Okay? Why? Because it opens the door to regret, discontentment with Allah's decree. Okay? And grief. And all these are weapons that shaitan is going to use against you and against your faith. Okay? Because you're not going to be happy with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you're not going to be happy with the decree. That's why we see many people, subhanAllah, when something bad happens, say why me? Say why me? This is a big word to say. Don't say why me. Say qaddar Allah inshallah fa'al. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decreed something for you, Allah is wise, He knows why that happened to you. Number two, why that's not allowed, because this is a bad conduct with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala concerning His qadr. Okay, because every matter that comes up, important matters and unimportant, is by the qadr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His will. So whatever occurs, no doubt occurs by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's planning. And of course, if Allah decreed something, nobody can change it. Okay? Nobody can change the qadr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So if one says, if it was like this, or if I had done this, then this would have happened. This is a type of resistance and weakness in faith, and also weakness in Allah's decree and will. Now there is no doubt about the danger of these two matters, and that the worshipper's faith and tawheed will not be complete without staying away from them. As for the other type, which is a praiseworthy statement of flow, is as the Prophet ﷺ said, لو استقبلت من أمري ما استدبرت لما سقت الهدي. He ﷺ, in his only Hajj, Hajjat al-Wada', he made ifrad. He made qiran. He made qiran. So Hajj and Umrah with one ihram. Okay, there are three types of Hajj. There's ifrad, that means you do only Hajj. There is qiran, that means you do Hajj and Umrah with one ihram. In other words, after you finish Umrah, you stay in a state of ihram and you wait until you do your Hajj. The best and easiest one, and the one that's recommended, is a tamattu'. What is a tamattu'? Tamattu', you do both. You do Hajj and Umrah, but you start with the Umrah, and after you finish the Umrah, you take off your Ihram. So the Umrah, obviously, you go, you make Tawaf 7 times around the Kaaba. As we said, with the Littiba', you show the right shoulder in your Ihram. Okay? In the Tawaf, all 7 circles, or, Tawaf. And of course, in the first 3, it is a sunnah to do Raml. That means you go fast with footsteps that are close to one another, the first three Tawaf. And after you finish these 7 Tawaf, this is a common mistake that I see many people do. After you finish, then you cover the shoulder. The Tiba', you do it only in the Tawaf, in the 7 circuits. After you finish, you cover your shoulder, and then you go behind Maqam Ibrahim alayhi salam, if you find room. If not, then move all the way back to pray 2 rak'ah. In the first 2 rak'ah, you read قُلْ يَا أَيُّهَا الْكَافِرُونَ. In the second rak'ah, you read قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٌ. And subhanAllah, I see some people, they go and they stand in the middle of the crowd, and they have people protecting them so that they can pray 2 rak'ah in front of Maqam Ibrahim. These people don't know what intention is. So they are harming other people making tawaf, thinking that they are getting a high reward. And that's the opposite. Because you don't harm a Muslim, which is haram, for the sake of doing something that is a sunnah. Okay? So if there is no room immediately by Maqam Ibrahim, and usually there is no room, then you go all the way back. And then you pray these 2 rak'ah. After that, it's a sunnah to drink from Zamzam water, to put it on your head. Also, before you drink it, you make dua. And then after that, you walk to Al-Mas'a. Al-Mas'a is the 2 mountains, As-Safa wal-Marwa. I mean, the actual mountains that are still there, like the actual mountains that were at the time of Hajar. And these Safa wal-Marwa are the 2 mountains where the mother of Ismail alayhi salam, Hajar, used to get up there looking for water, or for somebody that's coming for help, because Ibrahim alayhi salam was ordered by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to take Hajar and Ismail alayhi salam to Mecca, because his first wife Sarah was jealous. And subhanallah, we complain about our wives. Did you know that Sarah كان فيها حدة? Did you know that Ibrahim alayhi salam complained to Allah about his wife? Ibrahim alayhi salam complained to his wife. Subhanallah, what are we going to say? كان فيها حدة. She was the most beautiful woman after Hawa. Okay, she was the most beautiful one after Hawa, but she was rough on the edges, and she was the one that gave Ibrahim alayhi salam Hajar as a gift. But then after that, she became jealous. She's a woman, right? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordered Ibrahim alayhi salam to take Hajar and Ismail alayhi salam to where the Kaaba was going to be built later on. So the Kaaba was built by Adam alayhi salam, and the foundations were there, but the actual building was not showing. وَإِذْ بَوَّأْنَا لِإِبْرَاهِيمَ مَكَانَ الْبَيْتِ. That means we showed Ibrahim alayhi salam the place of where the Kaaba is. Okay, because the first masjid to be built on this earth is Al-Kaaba, and the second one is Bayt al-Maqdis, and between them is 40 years. Okay, so Ibrahim alayhi salam, when he left Hajar there, she asked him, did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala order you to do this? So when he said yes, she said, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not going to let us down. Look, tawakkul of this woman, subhanallah. This is how we want our women to be, subhanallah. We have to teach our girls, the thing, we don't teach our girls about these great examples of great women in Islam. We have to do that. We have to do that. I gave you the example of Nusayba bint Ka'b, Umara. They are Sahabiyah. They had a great impact on this religion, and we have to give our daughters the role model, because for them the role model is just that girl that takes off the hijab and says, "Oh, I'm free." This is not a role model. Okay, this is an evil role model. So we have to give them a good role model. We have to buy them books. We have to take them away from that TV, video games, and electronics, right? Because it's bad for the brain, and there's a lot of subliminal messages and a lot of brainwashing that happens to the kids. So this is a side note, okay? We have to care for our next generation, because for us, time is going. We're getting old. The wheel's gonna turn. تَسُدُّ الْأَيَّامِ بِيَ حُفْرَتِيَا. The days will close my grave with me. So my grave is open. It needs closing. It's my grave. I'm the one that's going to be used to close that gap. This is qadar Allah. I'm going to die and I'm going to go to. But then the days will continue. And our children have to have something They have a legacy from us, a good legacy. Okay, so let's not be complacent about it and say it's okay, they go to school, they go to Duxi. No, you have to sit with them, you have to talk to them. Talk, discussion, especially kids nowadays. 7-year-old kid today is like a 21-year-old 10 or 20 years ago. They may know more than we do. Okay, so conversation, get them close to you, This is the only way you're not going to lose them. This is the only way you're not going to lose your kids, especially in this country, because there's a lot of peer pressure. So Hajar said Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not going to let us down. That's why she used to go from Safa, the mountain of Safa, then she would descend and she would go towards the mountain of Al-Marwa, and then she would reach a valley. The valley is today, there's the green light where men are supposed to run as fast as they could, because when she would go down, descend in the valley, she could no longer see Ismail alayhi salam. So she would run so that she can come back up and see her son. A mother's fear. And then she would go to the Marwa and then try to look for some tribe. And she did that until Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordered Jibreel alayhi salam to strike the earth with the tip of his wing, and then the water started gushing forth, and then Hajar, she was worried that this is just a small water that's going to go into the sand, so she said zam, zam, zam. That means stop. This is why it's called Zamzam. And the Prophet ﷺ said, may Allah have mercy on our mother Hajar. If she did not do that, see, this is low again. If she did not do that, Zamzam would have been a running river. If she did not do that, Zamzam would have been a running river. Okay, so he said low. So this low is not going against the qadr of Allah. This is like saying, if I had money, I would spend it for the sake of Allah. This is a good low. Okay, so now we're talking about the second type of low. The first type of low that is bad is when something bad happens and you say, oh, if I did this wouldn't have happened. This is the bad low because you are not happy with the qadr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The good low is like the Prophet ﷺ said, if I knew what I know now, I would not have taken the hadi. I would have made ifrad or some other type of hajj, right? So here, the Prophet ﷺ said, if our mother Hajar did not say Zamzam, the river would have been flowing river. Also, he said, if our brother Musa alayhi salam did not ask Al-Khidr those 3 questions, we would have learned more from Al-Khidr. So this is if that is hoping for something good. It's not if that is feeling bad about something bad happens. So it's 2 different things. Is that clear? So when you say, if I had the wealth that that person had, I would have spent it for the sake of Allah. This is a good if, and you get the reward for this intention. Okay? But when something bad happened, you don't say low. This is the bad low, is when something bad happened, you say low. So, okay, so we said Hajar, so this is after Tawaf, you do Sa'i, from Safa to Marwa is 1, back to Safa is 2, you do that 7 times, and then after that you are finished in your Umrah, then you can shave. It's better to shave, but then if you're gonna do Hajj, then you just take basically reduce the amount of hair so that you can shave during Hajj. Okay. Okay. So back here. So when we talk about low that is good and bad, let's see what some of the scholars said. Okay. So the word low has several meanings and does not prohibit its constant use. As we said, if it has a bad meaning, like going against the qadr, it's bad. Other than that, it's good. Al-Bukhari included a chapter on its permissibility in some cases and mentioned several hadiths on this. As for the prohibition, established in the hadith of Muslim, the one that we just said that don't say low because it opens the door of shaitan, this prohibition is based on its use in eagerness for worldly matters or objecting to divine decree. Okay, so if you use it because something happened and you don't like it, then it's a bad use of if. Or if it's for some worldly matter, like the hypocrites said, oh, if they didn't go, then maybe they would have remained alive. Then this is a bad use of low. Qadi Iyad said in Mashariq al-Anwar on Sahih al-Athar, he said, no, that low often comes in the speech of the Arabs to indicate something is not possible due to the impossibility of something else. So for example, I say, if I were to eat haram food, I would eat at that restaurant. So I'm not going to eat haram food. But I'm saying that if I were to eat a haram food, then that would be the restaurant that I would eat in, because it serves haram food. Just a small example. So this is the meaning of him. So if I were to do something, which means I'm not going to do it, right? As the Prophet ﷺ said, لو كنت متخذا خليلا لاتخذت أبو بكر. If I were to take a khalil, a close companion in this world, I would have taken Abu Bakr. But of course, he ﷺ could not take any khalil from among mankind, because his khalil was Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay? So if it had been delayed, I would have given you more. If I could start over from what I have learned, I would not have brought the sacrificial animal and would have made it permissible. So law may also come with the meaning of in, such as saying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَوْ أَعْجَبَتْكُمْ means even if it appeases you. So law does not always come with the meaning of if. It can come with the meaning of even if. وَلَوْ أَعْجَبَكُمْ وَلَعَبْدٌ مُؤْمِنٌ خَيْرٌ مِّن مُشْرِكٍ وَلَوْ أَعْجَبَكُمْ. So a believing servant is better than a disbelieving servant, even if that disbelieving servant, you may like him. So here law means even if. So law has many uses in the language, in the Arabic language.
That verse,
Walau, even one ayah. Yeah, that's this law is even one ayah. That doesn't come with the meaning of if. So law has many meanings. Ibn Daqiq al-Eid said in إحكام الأحكام في شرح عمدة الأحكام, the Prophet ﷺ said, if I could start over what I have now, I would not have been guided. This contains 2 points. First, the permissibility of using the word law in some instances, even though it has been mentioned in a context that implies otherwise. Now, this is the Prophet ﷺ's statement. Why? Because his law was not going against the qadr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, without going into too much detail, law, we don't say it to go against the qadr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala if something bad happens, but we can say it to hope for something good to happen. As the Prophet ﷺ said, there are 4 types of people in this world. 4 types. Any human being is one of these 4 types. One, who has money and is using it, spending for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This guy has a reward. Second good type is a person that does not have money, and he says, if I had the money that Fulan has, I would have done the good deeds that he is doing. فَهُمَا فِي الْأَجْرِ سَوَاء. They have the same reward. The one who's spending the money and the one who's wishing for that. And then a third kind is a person that has money and using it for evil. He is sinning. And a fourth person, which is the majority of the people, and he is the worst. He says, if I had the money of such and such, I would have disobeyed Allah. He is getting the same sin of disobeying Allah and not even enjoying it.
This is the money and the knowledge. It goes like this hadith is money and the knowledge, and then the 4 categories. The knowledge, if I had, there's a person, the 4 categories.
The hadith does not have knowledge, but it's if you have some narration that has knowledge, then share it with me. Because the hadith says, if I had the money of such and such. So we're talking here about the worldly possessions and how they deal with it. So therefore we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us among the first of 2 types, either the ones that have money spent for the sake of Allah, or those that wish to do good deeds if we don't have money, and not to make us among the other 2 types. So inshallah we're going to stop here. If you have questions, then go ahead, brothers. I think you have a question.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So when you're referring to suicide at the beginning, right?
Referring to?
When you're referring to suicide, it may be in qadr, right? Like you're gonna die when your qadr comes.
Yeah.
Right. So in the story, when the boy asked to be shot by the arrow by the guy saying Bismillah, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like how do you reconcile that with qadr then? Because he chose to be killed in a way.
He chose to be martyred for the sake of Allah, for the purpose of those people of the town becoming Muslims.
Yeah.
Right? So that does not, like I said, if you jump from a building, usually that you're going to be killed. So this person, this is the story of the boy and the king, right? And then after that, the people that believed in him, the king threw them in the trench, Ashab al-Ukhdud, right? So, for example, we have examples in the Sirah. For example, there was a fighter in the last stronghold of Muslims in Andalus, in today's Spain. The Christians have laid a siege, and the king basically wanted to surrender the city and leave the city with his money. He just wanted to, he did not want to fight them. So one of the soldiers said, no, I'm going to fight for the sake of Allah, and I'm not going to leave. So they opened the door, the gate to the town, and he went out and he fought the Christians by himself, and he was martyred. Now, this person, when he did that, like basically, you know, most likely he's going to die, right? So there's a small chance that he's not going to die. But is this against the qadr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Allah has done some cause and effect, right? Like we said, if you stand in front of the train and the train hits you, most likely you're going to die, right? So this does not negate the qadr of Allah. So some actions we take, we know that the result may actually cause death. For example, let's talk about, a mujahid, the Amir tells him, you got to strap explosives on you, and you go enter the ranks of the disbelievers, and then explode yourself and those soldiers. Now, this is halal, by the way. If the Amir says, don't listen to the people that say blah blah, it's because there's no difference between you doing this, or for example, you going with an airplane, an F-16, and then basically diving onto, for example, a carrier, right? You know you're gonna die. The airplane is gonna explode. But then, if your Amir tells you to do that because it has an impact on the enemy, you do it. You're not killing yourself. Killing yourself that is prohibited. وَلَا تَقْتُلُوا أَنفُسَكُمْ. This is when you kill yourself because of some worldly things, because you're hopeless about living or something like that. So this is what the scholars have said. So don't basically when you do that, you know you're gonna die. You know you're gonna die. But of course, if you do it for the sake of Allah, and there are many companions that did that. Also, it was the time of the conquest of Persia. I forgot the name of the companion. He told his fellow soldiers, he told them, throw me above the wall into the city, and I'm gonna fight the enemy and try to open the door for you to come in. And he did that, and he fought the Persians and was able to open the door. And of course he was wounded badly, and he told them, if you had been late only a small while, I would have been dead. So this is a risk that he has taken. And these are companions. You're not going to tell me companions they're going to kill themselves and it's haram. I mean, come on. So this is weapon. Just like, it's like even the Japanese used to do it, the kamikaze. And this is how they were actually inflicting a lot of damage on the American soldiers, because they would use their airplanes to bomb the American ships, and after they finished, they would dive with their airplanes and explode the airplanes in doing that. So it's not something that is haram. So when you do that, you do it for the sake of Allah. You're not going against the qadr, because Allah says that, Plus, I don't want to say that that the boy, actually, because I'm not 100% sure if he was revealed to him that if he does that, he's going to die and the people are going to believe. So maybe there's something else he had. So the fact that I tell you, come, shoot me with a gun, it doesn't go as the qadr that I'm going to die. You understand? Is that your question, or?
Yeah, you answered it.
Okay. No. So anyway, what he's talking about is the story of the boy and the king, and this is the explanation of Surah Al-Ukhdud. Basically, there was this boy who was sent by his parents to learn magic, because at that time the king of Yemen